Happy International Women's Day. Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to be here today. It really is an absolute privilege to be amongst you, to see so many women who are working in engineering and environmental science, and of course the men in the room. I love that you're here, you care about the future and the people around you, and the future of this industry in particular. International Women's Day, the party kicks off this week. I'm sure you've all seen all the event invitations. It does feel like quite the celebration. It used to be a day, it's now about a week or potentially a month even. It's really extended itself. And that celebrating does matter. But today I want to zone in on something a little bit different. It's not just about how women enter the industry, which is very important, and many of our panellists will talk about that, but we really need to start talking about how people stay, grow and lead in this industry and in STEM in general. Because we do not have a problem in Australia or globally with women being interested in STEM. That is not the issue. But we do have a problem with retaining people and with visibility challenges. And I'm going to zone in a lot on this word visibility because it really matters. And it's one of those funny concepts we don't really talk about because you can't see it. Particularly this bites mid-career. And mid-career can sometimes feel like the lost lands of your career. You know, when everything's happening all at once, you're already on a pathway, you might start to have family challenges, elderly people challenges, kid challenges, financial challenges, it all starts happening. And that's also when we know that people are most likely to feel invisible and lost in their career. What do I mean by this? Let's let the data tell us a few stories. I'm sure you all love data. As a non-data driven person, well, I shouldn't say that about myself as a lawyer. I can do data, but you are much better at it than me. So this all comes from WGEA, the Workplace Gender Equality Agency, and they've got fantastic industry verticals that you can explore. So this one zones into our industry, which we've deep dived into, which is basically professional, scientific and technical, and then coming in there. So what is this telling us? I love a good pipeline story. So where do people come into the industry? Now you guys know this stuff. This is your life. This is who you are. What's fantastic is that we can see that at a graduate level, we're looking at about 40% women, 61% men. Fantastic. That's not a bad supply. And it's the classic inverted triangle that we see happening in our industry like many, many others. And this is where the problem comes into it. So although people enter in full of excitement and enthusiasm, it gradually starts to drop away as you get up the senior ranks. And by the time we get to what WGEA refers to as CEO and other heads of businesses, we're looking at just 16% of women being in those roles. And that's what I mean about this mid-career lost lands. Why do we lose so many people? It's just not what we would really want to be telling kids when they're signing up to STEM. Go, yeah, study hard, get your career started, and then by the way, you'll probably leave in about 10 years' time. That's not an exciting story to tell. What are the pathways people use to enter into our industry? And we can see this is where we start to get differential patterns of pathways and experience. So our apprentice level people, they're 10% only are women. Now, okay, in Australia we've got some issues with having access to apprenticeships, but even then there is a gendered approach to apprenticeships. Technical and trades, this is better than in some industries, and I do a lot of work with construction companies as well, and the numbers would look quite differently, but only 20% approximately of technical and trades people are women. Labour is 26. So you can see that there's a differential there as well. And if these are career pathways that are important for progression, this is where we need to see a more balanced approach. And just bearing in mind that we are about a 50-50% split. So in an ideal world, that's what we would be seeing is a representative split. And then this is one of these classic statistics that pervades all of Australia, which is when you get to clerical and admin roles, that's where many of the women in industry work or are overrepresented. So 75% of women. Now these are great jobs sometimes, but how many times does the CEO get selected from one of these roles or the head of business get selected from one of these roles? It's not because it's not possible. The people in there have got tons of skills and capability, but is this a role that has a natural career progression pathway to a business leadership role? Not usually, unless the person's really, really vocal and really gets their name up. Do they tend to come from the other two pools? Absolutely. And you can see where the problem begins. And this is what we really need to get conscious about, is how we help people navigate our industry. Now, I'm going to apologise in advance, but this is a fantastic infographic put out by the Department of Science, and it talks about STEM career pathways. And again, there's so much storytelling in this data. I love this, and I can send it to you later on if it's too small to read, but basically it tells us a story of people entering into STEM. It starts early. It starts in the early choices, the early educational choices people make, but all along the way there are factors and there are pressures that make people make varying decisions. You know, young girls, women, they get variable messages about whether they're likely to succeed, whether they should be doing STEM, whether they want to be doing STEM, and there is poor attrition from a very early age, as well as a lot of gendered messages that people hear about what they should and shouldn't be doing. We also know that the biggest single influencer of people entering into a career is their affinity with that career. So if you have had, you know, a dad, a brother, a father, a mother, hopefully in construction or engineering, you're much more likely to feel familiar about that industry. My dad was swinging off construction sites since I was a little girl, and I love the industry, and that's what happens. So these initial pools are very much driven by different factors, but what I'm very fascinated in is this bit. So by the time we've got people graduating from high school, graduating from uni, they've already made the decision, and we know the pipeline's thinning out here. In STEM, we've got a lot of different pathways. You guys have got some super skills out there, and they're very transferable. So not everyone's even going to go into industry. You might go in an academic pathway, so you never actually end up going directly into working in an industry. You might take a corporate or a business career or a industry-related career pathway, or you might exit at that point, and we've already then lost even more people. So you can see that the number of people entering the pipeline does not in any way correlate to who ends up staying there 20 and 30 years later. I'm sure this is something that some of you guys don't love, but it's a leaky pipeline, people. It's a problem. That's what's really happening, is the leakage in this pipeline and the different factors that forces this to happen. And that mid-career point that I mentioned, that happens here when you get lots of different other factors. So you get some of those external factors to people, men and women. There's a lot of research on the impact of men as well in industry about the competing pressures of having families and young children and long hours. But particularly for women, there are a lot of pressures here. And in the absence of role models, supporters, champions, mentors, sponsors, it gets very, very tough in those years, and their numbers decline, and that's why you get that inverted triangle that we so often talk about. So I know it's really important to focus on, you know, getting people into leadership roles, but actually the conversation needs to start earlier than that. It needs to start mid-career. It needs to start in those years that can feel like the invisible years, and we need to make them visible, because there's no lack of engaged, excited, purpose-driven, committed, technically proficient women in the industry. I mean, just have a look. This is who is sitting here today. But what is shifting? What goes on? Why is there a change? And it all comes down to progression. Progression becomes less clear the more senior you get. It was easy when you got your graduate role. It was a very, you know, your marks did it, your report card did it, how you performed did it, and then suddenly you're in the environment of work, and then what starts happening? It becomes less clear. Opportunities are now becoming more informal. How do they happen? How are decisions made? They're usually made in a room that you are not in. Decisions are made in conversations that you are not in. And over time, when women slowly feel that there are decisions that are being made that do not include them, they start to quietly step out sideways or completely out. And they could go into another pathway, exit STEM altogether. You've got very, very transferable skills if you have a STEM background. I mean, even, you know, something like financial services, if you think about the banking industry, you'd think, oh, well, they want finance people. Guess what? They want STEM people too. Everybody does. Everybody needs IT skills. Engineers are the most highly represented professional category in all of Australia's CEOs. It doesn't matter what you're the CEO of, it could be a media company, you're still likely to be an engineer in Australia. So these are very transferable skills. So if in our industry we don't see the strengths and we don't see the superpowers of the people working around us, they will go somewhere where they are seen. It's not because people can't do the work, it's because the pathway forward becomes invisible. And other barriers and challenges come up at the same time, whether it be family challenges, kids challenges, all of those things, or just the nobody knows that I exist in this company challenge. And that starts to really add up. When people's effort at work is visible and they feel like, hey, I'm doing my very best, I'm doing everything I can do, I'm performing really well, but opportunities are not visible, then people don't stay. And this is what I mean about making the invisible visible. In my research, I hear a lot of times, we work closely with women and with men, and I hear lots of people say these words to us. Ambition is a dirty word around here. I don't feel I can speak up about what I want to do. I feel invisible. I don't know, what lies ahead or how to get there. Last year we ran a national survey of women working in Australia in partnership with Women's Agenda. We asked women who are working to talk about what is the biggest barrier to you getting ahead in your career. You might expect that people would say things like children, caring responsibilities. No. 31% of women said it was a lack of visibility. They personally felt invisible. No one knows I'm working here and what I'm doing and how great a job I'm doing. 43% said that a lack of clear pathways and visibility and understanding of how to step forward was the biggest problem. Much higher statistics than caring responsibilities, much higher than availability of flexible work options. And that's not the problem. It's people can't see how to navigate forward. And maybe it also includes things like lack of role models about women who are successfully doing it, working part-time. But it's this visibility piece and this opportunity piece that is actually driving those mid-career decisions that people make. It's not the other stuff. Even though very often I do hear people when they are exiting, they say, oh, I'm leaving for family reasons. How many times have you heard that? That is just a misnomer for, I can't be bothered getting into it with you, but I'm leaving for family reasons. You'll never question that. And then they go. And then guess what? The next company is quite able to offer them a job, even with family reasons, and it's not a problem. So we don't necessarily tell people the truth about what's going on. We just kind of do a quiet exit. So it's not about confidence. It's not about ambition. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of ambition in this room. You do not lack ambition, you do not lack capability, but it is about access. It's about access to information, about just knowing what the way to navigate a pathway is. It's about access to decision makers, to decision making. It's about advocacy, and it's about someone talking about you and your skills and your capabilities when they're being discussed. And these things happen in the moment. It's that moment where someone says, hey, we're putting together a project team. Who do we need? Who's the best person? We're putting together a tender. Who do we need? And it's the next name that gets said. That's who the company needs. If your name isn't being said in that moment, it's a very, very big uphill battle. Invisibility is not a failing of anybody, it's a systemic issue. And being a systemic issue, systems and processes and behaviours are built by people, so we can change that. This is actually easier to change than some great big other crisis. It's a systemic issue that once we're aware of it, we can fix it. You guys know this stuff. In this industry, we are feeling this even more. There's particular nuances that happen why this is particularly sharp. Engineering, construction, energy, all of these wonderful industries that are, let's not be so buoyant as to say booming, but doing really well in Australia compared to a lot of others. But in these industries, many women work in smaller firms, subbies, subcontractor firms, specialist consultancies, and I know that's real life for many of you here today. In construction, I know that 98% of all firms are small employers. Why does that matter? These companies do incredible work. They're essential to the projects we're delivering on. We call on our subbies, we call on our consultants when we need them. However, that they can also be either places where you get ahead really quickly because everyone knows who you are, or the opposite, where there's less access to formal leadership programs, less access to progression pathways. Maybe there's less formal discussions about succession, and so it can feel as though it's harder to know how to get ahead, because although you can get your hands around the whole company, maybe it doesn't feel quite as easy as some of the bigger firms. But progression relies on who notices you, who speaks up, and who believes that you're ready, and who isn't giving out the wrong information about you. I've seen that happen as well. We'll talk about that in a moment. Because careers are shaped much less by process once you've navigated that academic pathway. Once you get into a company, careers are made by people. There's absolutely no doubt about that. We've got a massive agenda ahead of us in terms of infrastructure and budget spending. We've got Olympics coming up, we've got renewable energies booming, we've got a massive focus on IT. All of these industries, guess what? They're fishing in our pond. They want people with STEM backgrounds. So there's an incredible hunting for these skills, and that's a global phenomena. So if you've got skills in this area, congratulations, you've got a passport to the world pretty much. But at the same time, we've got a skills shortage, and it's starting to become, it's causing pressure on project delivery. We've got massive skills shortages. We hear about that all the time, and there's increasing competition. So people are sort of moving around and being pinched. We simply cannot afford to keep losing our mid-career people, and women in particular. We cannot afford to keep on focusing on just leadership or the entry point. Like, yes, obviously we have to keep the pipeline full, but let's not lose the ones we've got. Because every time a woman leaves from those 10, 15 years where they've got all that experience, it's not just a personal loss, it's a capability and productivity loss. And the industry is being impacted by it, and we're losing people out of that critical pipeline into non-STEM roles, when these are the people we need exactly now in Australia. So this is an Australian productivity issue. Retention in organisations will not be driven by perks. Like, it's very nice to bring your dog to school, work. It's very nice to have a gym and apples and things like that. Retaining people is all about progression and visibility and feeling like you count, feeling like you're known for what you're doing, and that is being recognised and respected and rewarded. We have to be able to also see what's possible. This is the absolute importance of role modelling. We all know the saying, you can't be what you can't see, but it's because we need to be able to imagine the future. Now, I've been in rooms where women have said to me, I've never seen a project director with children, a female project director with children. Never seen one. So if you've never seen one, what does that tell you? I don't think that happens around here. That's the signal it sends. Role modelling matters, not in a performative way, but in a very human way. So when women see other people like them progressing and making it out of those mid-careers, they stay longer, they aim higher, and they believe it's possible. And it's not related to job titles. We don't just need the most senior people with a job title to do this. Anybody can be a role model. Anybody can be an advocate, a supporter, a true mentor, a true sponsor for other people. It's all about how you behave. It's all about the interest that you take in the people around you, particularly the unobvious ones, the ones that you don't normally take interest in. It's who people listen to. So if you've got a voice of influence in a situation, and that's not title driven always, if you have an influential voice and people listen to you, what do you do with that voice? And who do people trust? It's the role modelling that we do silently that will give other people permission to fly and to succeed. And this is why it's so important to be conscious of this on a daily basis, because careers are rarely made in one big kaboom moment. We'll hear from the panellists today. It's those little incremental moments that matter. I got an opportunity to do this, I stepped into that, somebody said I was doing, a great job and put me forward here. It's those little moments along that pathway that keep you engaged, keep you coming back, keep you interested. And it's the same for men and women. We're not talking about something that's different for women, but if it's not happening to you in your career, then you will know that you are missing out. So we need to become conscious of that. We need to become conscious of the small moments. It's all too easy to come to a big event, and this is one of the love-hate things that people in the industry have about IW. This is great, fantastic, but what happens tomorrow? That's the big issue. You know, it's the small moments every day that actually have a much bigger impact on the future. So what do we need? We need words that are positive. You know, I also hear words that are negative. We need to be very, very conscious of these things, and they're not necessarily intentionally negative. The number of times I've heard people say in conversations, "Oh, she'll never move, she's got a couple of kids now." And then the conversation just flows on like that's an absolute baked-in truth. You know, oh, okay, great, don't even bother asking, she's not going to move. I've done a great piece of research with an energy company, and I've literally had people walking up to him and going, "You're a diversity hire, don't worry about it, love." Like, this wasn't in 1972, this was last year. Like, we're still saying this stuff, and maybe that was meant to be funny because it's usually followed by the classic Australian just joking. There's nothing joking about that. You can't go around telling people to their face they're a diversity hire. I've even had, like, literally the technical lead on a project gave her report over, and the guy said, "Yeah, thanks, I'll get the boys to check over this, make sure it's accurate." Come on, like, really? This person's paid $250,000 for their opinion and you need to get the boys to double check it? Like, these words that come out of people's mouths in the moment, they're the ones that make careers. It's not the big grandiose gestures. So we need to become very conscious of what we say and do in moments, because influence is shaped in all of those moments. So allyship is really important. I'm very, very big fan of allyship and all the discussion about allyship. Allyship matters. Awareness of these topics also matters. But while allyship can feel very supportive, we need sponsorship and we need advocacy that's decisive. You know, allies support when asked. Yep, I'll have a coffee with you. You know, this is really important. But people sponsor others when they use their voice, when they use their power and they use their influence to change the course of what's about to happen. So it begins by becoming aware of this. You know, it's those little moments where someone's name gets mentioned in conjunction with a new project. Who's named in a succession planning discussion? Who's spoken about as ready? Oh yeah, Bob's great. Bob's really ready for another opportunity. If we don't give him something meaty, he's probably going to go. We've got to figure out something to keep Bob on side. That's very, very different to, oh, she's got a couple of kids now, she's not going to move. Can you, like, two basic messages that could be said any day of the week, and they're not said with sort of any, you know, big intention, but wow, does that stick in other people's mindsets about who is likely to get ahead and be thought of. Oh, can't lose Bob, quick, find Bob something to do. She's happy, she's got the kids. Careers don't stall because of a lack of effort. There is no one here who doesn't feel like they're putting in a lot of effort round about now. They stall because no one is speaking about you in the right conversations. So there's a lot that we can do, all of us, each of us, women, men. It's not about fixing ourselves though. We do not need to fix the women in this industry. They don't need any more extra skills to get ahead. That is not the solution here. People have agency, and the women in this room, you have agency, you have influence. So even if this system is imperfect, you have a lot of influence. You have ambition, and you need to be able to feel comfortable talking about that. Name your ambition. You don't need to make it, you know, again, feel fake and feel like you're bragging, but we need to be able to talk about what you want to do and what your hopes and dreams are. Because once you put those words out there, then the next time someone's talking, they say, oh yeah, Maria just told me that she'd be really interested in trying a new role in the blah blah division. Bang, guess who's being talked about? Make your work visible. Talk about what you're doing. Don't hide it and hope that somebody else will notice, because chances are they're too busy wanting to be noticed that they're not noticing what you're noticing. So you need to speak up a little bit. Ask for stretch opportunities, not just feedback. I think I'm doing a really good job. Could I get some feedback? Just be bold. Say, hey, look, I'd really love to try doing something extra. I'm hoping to grow my skills in consulting. I'm hoping to grow my skills in report writing, whatever it is. Speak about it, because the next time, bingo, someone says we're looking for one of those, they'll go, yeah, Kimberly just told me that she's wanting to try that out. Be that person where people know what you want to do. In those moments, you have to be a bit courageous. Choose courage over comfort. particularly when it comes to your career. You have to be in the front, like the driver's seat of your career. Waiting to be noticed and doing a really good job is not a strategy. That's just waiting to be noticed, and it doesn't pan out that way. We have to get more comfortable with asking, and it's true for many people, not everyone, let's not stereotype everyone, but not many people are always comfortable asking for something. It's all in the way that you put it. In that same piece of research, we asked women, who do you talk to about your career aspirations? Who do you reckon it is? Any guesses? Who? Customers? Partner? Mum? See, ladies, we have to confess this stuff. Guess what? The number one? Your girlfriends. 64% of women say they tell their friends. So it's Saturday night, you're having a shardy, and you say, guess what? I'm doing such a good job, but nobody knows. I'm really annoyed. What are you going to do? You're going to get onto seek.com on Monday morning. That's what the girlfriends are going to say. I'll leave. You're too good for them. Go and get a job. Different job. Someone who values you. Then we tell our partners. We tell our partners even less than our girlfriends. So girlfriends, you need to be writing the CVs for each other. Only 48% of people tell their manager. We tell our girlfriends a whole lot more than we tell our managers. Like, that's a problem, people. And 37% tell their peers. So then probably over lunchtime we say, oh my God, did you get overlooked again? Yeah, I did too. What are we going to do about it? Let's leave. That's the problem. These people have got lots of aspirations and they're doing great things and they've got lots to say about their career, but we're telling the wrong person. Now, why do we do that? And I think that the why that happens is very, very interesting. Do we not feel comfortable? Do we not have, is an annual performance review just a little bit too late? Like once a year you walk in the room and you got a good and whatever, and in that moment you're like, well, I'm not going to tell you what I really want to do. If the conversations aren't happening at work, if it's a systemic issue, we've got to change the system. If the moments aren't happening, make the moment. That's the best thing that you can do, ladies, is make the moment happen if there's something that you want to talk about. Now, fellas, and I know there's many brave souls of you here today. I want to just have a little chat with you directly. It doesn't matter what your role is. If you lead people or you have people around you, and I mean lead in the most broadest possible way, which you clearly do because you're here today, you are already directly shaping other people's careers. The leadership shadow is a wonderful concept that talks about how we influence people. You are influential people, and I really ask you to take accountability for how that influence pays out. That's the number one thing that people can do to become a really good ally. It's just become aware of the power of the influence that you have over others in small, indirect, daily ways. Notice who is constantly being overlooked around you. Notice who is, and ask why. Why aren't we thinking about Sue? Speak people's names, find out what they're interested in and talk about them in rooms and role model that inclusive behaviour. And if you ever hear someone say something that you're not sure of, like, oh, she'll never move, she's got a couple of kids, just say, are we sure about that? Do we need to go and ask Maria? Maybe Maria's very happy to move because I've got a couple of kids and I've moved 5 times. No one ever said that about me. Just go and ask the is this real question and challenge those assumptions. It really, really matters. So I would leave you with this. What will you do with your influence? Just ask a powerful question. Who's missing from this conversation and why? What are we missing out on? And next time someone leaves the company, we need to say, why did they go? It probably wasn't just the kids. Ladies, what do you want to be visible for? This is what you need to know about yourself. What do you want to be known for? It can be anything. I've got great, consulting skills. I've got great client relationship skills. Just talk about what you want to be known for. You don't have to say to the boss, oh, I want your job in 7 years' time. We're not saying that. Start talking more loudly about what you want to be known for so that people then hear that. That's the simplest thing. And then when they do that, then we need everyone else listening, men and women. Women are influential as this. So I'll leave you with this. Careers do not move because people work even harder and harder and harder. I don't think many of us have got much left to give in the working harder stakes. We're already working hard enough. Careers move because somebody notices, speaks up, and somebody takes action. So if we want to change that leaky pipeline, if we want women to stay in this industry, to grow and to lead in this industry, we have to make the pathways visible. We have to take personal responsibility, both for your own career and the people around you, for doing this. And we have to stop relying on chance and good luck as a career strategy. That is not a strategy, ladies. The talent for this industry is already here. She is sitting here in this room. The commitment is here. She is sitting in this room. He is sitting in this room. The future of this industry and how successful we are retaining and growing people will be made by those moments where we choose to notice something and where we choose not to stay silent, and we say something and we say the words that need to be heard by everyone. Thank you.